So I wanted to start off the presentation by walking through the top 10 data import mistakes and trying to walk everyone through really what we were going to be talking about over the bulk of the presentation. And by walking us through these mistakes, we can then think about, as we go through the presentation, how to overcome them. And it's really not that hard. And again, we'll walk through these. It's almost like a learning objectives part 2, the way I look at these next 2 slides. So not knowing what's possible with an ACL is key. I mean, ACL, what's nice about it, has been around for many years, decades. And because of that, it grew up with all different types of data formats. And with all those different types of data formats, it sort of became a master of all of reading all of them and getting it into to ACL. And what's interesting is there are a lot of data types like EPSIDIC, and that would come off of an IBM mainframe. And EPSIDIC is something that mainframe, people that are maintaining mainframes will tell you is very difficult to read on the PC. You won't be able to read it, etc. And ACL reads it pure, and actually it's preferred to get it in that format because I find a lot of times when you convert the data from EPSIDIC to ASCII, you get a lot of conversion mistakes. So, almost try going at it raw the first time, even though the IT folks won't believe that ACL will be able to import it, and give it a try. I think another point is just talking through understanding what are your reporting needs, which really should drive what are the steps that you should be, or what are the data fields that you should be getting, what are the tables you should be getting in your data. And I will talk through a quick process there in a few minutes. I do feel that getting knowledgeable people involved in the system really does help. And a lot of times we will work, say, with the financial executive, the controller, the CFO, director of accounting, who will get you data. But sometimes the data is not as good, and it's because they're using, say, a PDF report writer tool or an Excel export tool. And sometimes getting that IT person in there who might have a data mart of this data out there, or who knows, it sometimes can help you get the right data or better data for your analysis. Having said that, you don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here. So it's just a data request, let's say, for your revenue testing, and it's not something where you have to bring in the cavalry and everyone else to help out. But at the same time, it can be a useful thing, especially if they have something at the ready. A lot of times there are data marts that are set up and for this purpose. So. Then, taking a look into some of the validation that you might want to do, running statistics is a very key point in making sure that, what you're seeing in the data just makes sense. A lot of times I'll run data and notice that there's no negative values in the data whatsoever. And it just kind of throws me. Again, I guess if it's an ending inventory file, there should be no negatives. So, okay, that makes sense. But even there, a lot of times there are negatives because of mistakes. But again, the statistics kind of helps you to understand your data and understand, what you're looking at a high level to make sure that you're on the right track. To that point, taking a look at summarizing text fields can really help you to understand what is the data that you're looking at. So maybe summarizing by account type or who entered the data into the tool, into the ERP package, would be something that would be very helpful in your analysis. And also, it might throw you. You might see that there's only 2 enterers of data into the entire general ledger system. And that doesn't make sense, so maybe you didn't get all the data, or maybe they don't use that field properly or whatever. But it does kind of help you to understand. And what we're trying to do is validate data before you put it through the whole reporting process and make recommendations and God knows what else. When really what should only be done at this point is just validating that you have the right data before you move forward. Hard copy information, I still like to ask for hard copy information if it's available, such as a manual journal entry, if there is such a thing anymore. Even if it's in Excel, that's okay. And things like an image file, let's say of an invoice, be it a customer invoice or accounts payable invoice, that hard copy information really does help in validating data. And I just can't tell you how many times we thought we had an invoice date or a transaction date, and then you look at the actual document and find that we didn't. We had some, due date or expected posting date or something like that, and it had no relevance. To that end, not validating field totals, batch totals. We're going to go through some slides on validating data, which I again feel like is a key point. I think using report files, I do hear from time to time that people use PDF files in their ACL data analysis, and we have to understand that no system has their data stored in like a PDF format, let's say. So it's something where it's clearly a report file, and it's something where it's always better to go back to those raw system files if you can get them. And usually if you can get them, they are fixed length, which does help, especially I do know Oracle is, so that does help in any sort of analysis because you can define that data table once, and then that data table can be, or that input file definition can be utilized again and again and again. Similarly, getting data in Excel versus a more raw format can be something where I am finding myself getting more and more data in Excel, so I can't say anything against it, but too much. But I have to admit, I would much rather get it in the fixed length files. And what I end up having to do every time is write some ACL routine, which we will go through today. We will be defining Excel and fixed files and tab delimited files, etc. But we will kind of talk through that automation, but it's still a step that you don't have to do if you get a fixed length file. So if you get that fixed length system file, you define it once, and that definition can be used over and over and over again. So lack of understanding of the various data types, we're obviously going to, as I just said, spend a lot of time looking at all the data types, and we will also talk about, just understanding how best to use data fields. I'm a big believer in left trimming every character field if you can do it, and I actually have a good trick for that if you don't know it already, and etc. So I want to kind of walk through. Really just understanding your data, but also being able to make sure that it's defined properly in ACL for analysis. So the quick process to running data, I like to show this in the beginning only to point out the fact that a lot of people will go into an accounts payable area or financial area and say that I'd like to get the entire general ledger, or I'd like to get the entire accounts payable system. I don't know what I need, but by not really first defining where they're mostly going to focus their time and what are the data fields that they're going to need to do their analysis, because that's all it is. It's really just getting which building blocks do I need in order to build some sort of a case, be it a fraud case or error case or whatever you're testing. So by understanding your audit objectives, thinking about the reports that you want to run, using maybe some past reports, and thinking about how to apply them, and we will be talking a little bit about that as well. But again, setting data requirements then based on those reports, and so that you're only getting what you need, then validating, normalizing, editing scripts, etc. But I think those key first points, I wanted to show you the whole process when I think about running reports, but I do feel that those first 4 or 5 steps are huge, and if they're done properly and efficiently, and understanding and focusing on what you best need, You can get a lot done quickly, and I do find in the process itself that steps 1 through 5, again, quite a big percentage of the total anyway, but 1 through 5 tend to take up even more, than maybe even 80% or 85% sometimes to properly get data. So when you are running reports, it's usually very simplistic because you don't have a lot of time at that point. If we can get this into a more consistent way, which I hope to talk to you about and get you on the road towards, you can start to really just 1 through 5 becomes a very quick event, and you're just now focusing on 6 and 7 as part of the part you really should be focusing on, analysis.